Hello and welcome to Midday Report on TVP World. I'm your host, Marie Cato. Russia struck the city of Poltava in central eastern Ukraine on Thursday morning. According to first reports, the attack left 2 people dead and 11 more wounded. Air raid sirens were sounded throughout the city past 7 a.m. local time, while the Ukrainian Air Force reported Russian drones flying towards the city from the north and west. The head of the Poltava region's military administration said the strike caused a fire to break out and damage civilian infrastructure. Ukrainian authorities have set up response headquarters at the site of the attack and urged residents to stay in shelters during air raid alerts. Residents of Ukraine's Odessa remain in shock after an overnight Russian drone strike. A resident of the struck building said everything looked safe when the drone flew past them, but they didn't expect the UAV to turn back around.
We weren't hiding, we were at home, immediately checking our phones to see where it flew. It flew far at first, then suddenly turned back, and as soon as it hit, we all started running out. And now we're just sitting here, out on the tree. A 9-story residential building was hit. A large-scale fire broke out. Apartments from the 7th to the 9th floors were on fire. People were trapped in their apartments and 11 people were rescued from the upper floors, including 2 children, using special equipment. So far, we know of 5 injured, including 2 children.
NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has urged the United States to continue supporting Ukraine after the Pentagon announced it was halting weapons deliveries. This comes just a week after a NATO summit in The Hague, where President Trump said he would look into sending more weapons to Kyiv. Our correspondent Alex Cadier was at the summit and joins me now from Brussels. Good afternoon, Alex. What did Rutte have to say?
Good afternoon, Marie. Well, you're right to mention that summit in The Hague. There was that emotional moment, Donald Trump interacting with a Ukrainian journalist, asking her questions, saying, is your husband still in Ukraine? Is he on the front line? Is he fighting? And he said, well, look, we're going to look into getting more air defenses to Ukraine. And just a week later, the U.S. administration halting supplies to Ukraine, including of air defenses, which we understand from reporting in the Wall Street Journal could have made it as far as Poland before being stopped from crossing the border into Ukraine. So a serious situation for Ukraine, which has been hit, as we've just reported in Poltava overnight, with people losing their lives. Mark Rutte trying to strike the kind of diplomatic tone we've seen from him for weeks now, saying that he understands that the United States has to look after its own stockpiles, but clearly Ukraine cannot afford to continue without the support it is getting from the United States and others. He also added that European powers are really stepping up. So trying to have that fine balance, that fine line with the US President Donald Trump. He has resorted to flattery, as we saw at the NATO summit, complimenting the US President, trying to convince him to get on side, to join European efforts in continuing to support Ukraine. And Marie, we've heard just in the last hour or so that the US President Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky, the President of Ukraine, will discuss this on the phone in the next 24 hours or so, giving you a sense of that urgency for these Ukrainian air defenses, which are already spread incredibly thin in the face of the largest barrage of air attacks from Russia on Ukrainian cities. So clearly, Mark Rutte trying to push for diplomacy. Volodymyr Zelensky will speak to Donald Trump tomorrow to further that diplomacy and hopefully send those air defenses that his country so desperately needs. Marie.
Alex Cadier for us in Brussels. Many thanks for that detailed report. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has called on the EU to speed up negotiations with the US in their trade dispute. He voiced concern that drawn-out discussions with Washington could harm German industries.
This is not about a finely chiseled, comprehensive trade agreement with the United States that has been negotiated in every detail. What we are talking about now is the rapid settlement of a customs dispute, particularly for the key industries in our country: chemical industry, pharmaceutical industry, mechanical engineering, aluminum, steel, and the automotive industry. A quick result must now be achieved with the United States. It is better to achieve a quick and simple result than a lengthy and complicated one that is negotiated for months.
A high-ranking Russian commander has been killed in a Ukrainian attack. Major General Mikhail Gudkov was the deputy head of the Russian Navy, but also held command of a brigade in Ukraine. Gudkov was reportedly one of 10 Russians killed after Ukrainians struck a command post in Korenovo in the Russian Kursk region. The 155th Brigade, led by Gudkov, has been heavily involved in the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. It was involved in combat operations around Kyiv during the first months of the invasion. Ukraine has accused the unit of being involved in war crimes. Without these rockets, the administration and Donald Trump are opening the sky for Russia and telling Putin that you can hit now, said Piotr Kashuvara, president of the UA Future Foundation, when speaking to TVP World about the vital need for ongoing Western aid for Ukraine's defense.
Without these rockets, we can say that the United States or Donald Trump's administration is opening the sky for Russia and telling to Putin that you can hit now, you can kill more people, because what can stop Putin? He even called to President Macron. They had 2 hours conversation a few days ago. And Putin said the same to Macron as he's constantly saying to Donald Trump. He's saying, like, stop sending weapons to Ukraine and then the war will be over. And obviously the war will be over and the country will be over and the freedom and independence of Ukraine will be over if Western countries won't support Ukraine anymore.
Today, the Polish Parliament will sign into law a bill reinstating checks on the borders with Germany and Lithuania. This is a reciprocal move to border controls introduced by Berlin that is intended to minimize migrant trafficking from Lithuania. The border checks will begin on Monday. The Polish Deputy Interior Minister Czesław Mroczek explains what they will entail.
Some infrastructure to enable control will be put in place, but we are not reinstating permanent border control stations. We will certainly be stopping some cars, so there will probably be a slight slowdown of traffic. But as we will oversee the flow of migrants, we will do our utmost to avoid causing unnecessary obstruction to traffic.
Polish President-elect Karol Nawrocki has announced the next leadership of the country's National Security Bureau. The department charged with executing presidential orders on national security will be led by a historian with close ties to the right-wing Law and Justice Party. Sławomir Cęckiewicz is a former employee of the Institute of National Remembrance, which was led by Karol Nawrocki before his election. In Poland, Cęckiewicz is best known for a book he published in 2008, in which he accused the 1980s leader of Solidarity, Lech Wałęsa, of being an agent for the Communist Security Service. The allegations have not been conclusively proven. While not politically active for the party, Cęckiewicz has always voiced sympathies for law and justice, while voicing relentless criticism of the current ruling coalition. He was a member of a commission set up by the previous Law and Justice government, charged with investigating Russian influence in Polish politics. The commission was heavily criticized for focusing all their efforts on political opponents of law and justice. July 11th will become a national holiday in Poland, commemorating the Polish victims of ethnic cleansings in the former Eastern borderlands. The National Day of Remembrance for the Polish victims of genocide committed by Ukrainian nationalists was signed into law by outgoing Polish President Andrzej Duda. The massacres of Poles in the country's eastern borderlands in Volhynia and eastern Galicia were part of an ethnic cleansing operation carried out in Nazi German-occupied Poland by the Ukrainian insurgent army from 1943 to 1945. It is estimated that up to 106,000 Polish nationals were killed in the massacres that since 2016 have been recognized by Poland as genocide. These horrific events are a bone of contention in current Polish-Ukrainian relations. This year, exhumations were finally approved for some burial sites in Ukraine by authorities in Kyiv. Polish-Belarusian journalist Andrzej Poczobut was not among the dissidents recently released by the Lukashenko regime. While he is not as prominent as the released dissident Serhiy Cichanowski, Poczobut is still notable enough to be kept as a bargaining chip against the Polish government, according to political scientist Aleksander Papko.
We see that Alexander Lukashenko mostly releases figures who are not so well known and well demanded by the international community. The release of Sergei Tikhanovsky, and journalist working for the Radio Free Europe, it was probably the only one release of high-profile political prisoners. And again, in my opinion, it was the condition for imposed on Alexander Lukashenko to meet, imposed by the United States, to meet with the special envoy Kit Kellogg. As about Andrei, the problem is that Alexander Lukashenko considers him as a highly valuable tool to make pressure, especially on Poland, and he hates Poland really much, and he wants to sell this journalist. He wants to sell this journalist of Polish origin, Polish ethnicity, but he's citizen of Belarus.
The Three Seas initiative, launched in 2015 by Croatian President Kolinda Grabar-Kitarović and her Polish counterpart Andrzej Duda, marked 10 years of cooperation in April in Warsaw. As Croatia takes the helm, our reporter Sonia Agata-Biszczan shares the country's perspective from Zagreb.
With the 2026 Three Seas Initiative Summit to be hosted by Croatia, we came here to get a local perspective on things. The Croatian Prime Minister Andrej Plenković shared in April that economic cooperation would be among the key priorities of Croatia's rotating presidency. Comprising 13 member states located on the Baltic, Adriatic and the Black Sea, economic growth is already among the priorities of the initiative. However, according to the former Minister of Economy of Croatia, Ljubo Jurčić, other aspects of the initiative have been more pronounced.
I see it as a creation of a political wall, first and foremost against Russia, stemming from the situation with Ukraine on the one hand. On the other hand, this initiative was meant to increase cooperation between our countries. Perhaps political cooperation is increasing, but we are looking whether the conditions for economic cooperation will be established. For now, I don't see that these were established.
To date, more experts have voiced skepticism over the initiative's deliverables. However, the initiative is also said to be scaling up amid the evolving geopolitical landscape and the mounting threats.
Before the full-scale Russian invasion to Ukraine, this Three Seas initiative came to one process of, let's say, one situation that it was not so important for the many member states. But now, when we see that we have to work together because no one can win any conflict, any war in future alone.
As the second priority of the Croatian presidency, the Croatian Prime Minister highlighted energy cooperation. That probably comes as no surprise, as the LNG terminal on the Croatian island of Krk has been one of the Three Seas priority projects.
This Three Seas initiative supported the idea of LNG terminal, not just for a, let's say, tactical level of importance for Croatia, but also to be supplement in the case the situation in East Europe, particularly in Ukraine, is going to be worse, to allow the other Middle European countries to have a safe and unhindered approach to liquid natural gas.
The Three Seas initiative was launched in 2015 by the presidents of Croatia and Poland. From Zagreb, for TVP World, I'm Sonia Agata-Biszczan.
Breaking news in the world of sports. Spanish media has reported that Diogo Jota, the 28-year-old Liverpool and Portuguese national team footballer, has died in a car accident. According to Marca, the car burst into flames after veering off the road. Jota, a key player for Liverpool Football Club, is believed to have been travelling with his brother Andre, who is also a footballer, and feared death. The crash occurred on the A52 highway in the Spanish province of Zamora. Details about the crash remain limited, but reports say the car left the road and caught fire. The 28-year-old had just celebrated a major personal milestone, marrying the mother of his 3 children, Rute Cardoso, just 2 weeks ago. And this concludes Midday Report here on TVP World. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for more on our channel. Goodbye.